Richmond City Council recently passed an urgency ordinance, which allows churches and nonprofit organizations to host up to 4 unhoused RV dwellers to live in their property temporarily. Richmond Police Crime Prevention Specialist Michelle Milam, who heads the city's homeless task force, says the program is designed to help unhoused residents living on the street to transition into permanent housing. It's a scattered site approach to the homeless crisis, in contrast to the safe parking idea, which envisioned using Hilltop Mall and other locations and ran into fierce opposition from neighborhood groups.
There's just a lot of folks who are living in cars and RVs, and they can't park any place legally on the street, and also parking someplace safe where they'll be fenced in, where they won't be bothered by anybody else who is out there, and being able to have a secure place to park is important. Overwhelmingly, the majority of the city council was supportive of it, but I think Richmond, like cities all over, has realized is that we're hit hard by the pandemic. When those shelters closed, and Project Room Key became really viable, and people got moved into the hotels, there were still a good deal of people who were out on the street every night without options. And so Richmond, like other cities, realized that there's some things that we have to do to take action to make things happen. And so I think you've seen that happen over the years, is that Richmond is taking more of an active role in thinking of how can the city collaborate with partners like the county and the feds and private partners to work on homelessness together.
Milam said the ordinance makes it easier for churches and nonprofits to open their spaces and also provides a path to permanent housing for the unhoused residents.
The city's looking at being able to provide insurance to churches and houses of worship so that they don't have to take on the general liability of having someone in that position that's on their property, because you do take on some liability. And so we've figured out that that was one of the ways, looking at other cities, that we could help encourage houses of worship to do this. The other thing that the city is willing to come in and provide is wraparound services, so support services like SOS, to be able to identify people who would be a good fit for the property. So it's not just someone who's coming and who doesn't have kind of an end game. We're really looking at people who are ready to transition to more permanent housing. So that is something that we would be able to provide, in addition to things like porta potties. So we're trying to make it as simple as possible for folks to be able to do this.
There are well over 100 people in Richmond living in their cars, RVs, and trailers on Richmond city streets, many of them in ad hoc communities on Ryden Road near Central Avenue and on Castro Street near Richmond Parkway. People living on the street face major security and sanitation problems, and they are at risk every day of being forced to move on by the police, even though they have no other place to go. Milam emphasizes that the program would not take care of everybody in such a situation.
No, I think it's one strategy. I think that the problem is people kind of see it as, one thing versus another. Ryden and Castro, there's also been some case management done with people, some housing navigation. So this is just another option for people. So we're trying to provide as many options, because right now, if you are unhoused and you go to a shelter or a hotel, they are not going to let you bring your RV or your camper. And that prevents a lot of people from, accessing those kinds of services, because that's the one asset that they have. A lot of people moved up from tents and they were able to get an RV or they were able to get a camper, and the thought of getting rid of it to go into a shelter, which, may or may not be long term for them, is not an option for them. So they're moving towards like, how can I, still keep my RV while I transition towards more longer term housing opportunities. So it's just another way for people to be able to have an option to be able to transition.
Milam is hopeful the program will win broad acceptance from the community.
But I think it's all in the way that it's managed. People don't want to see something poorly managed. So we want to set people up for success. And setting people up for success is starting small, being able to provide the resources that are needed. It's not a permanent thing. It's a month-to-month basis. If it does not work out, there's always a way to be able to move on from that decision or find somebody else who's a better fit. But I think you want to give people all the tools that they need to be set up for success.
The city and the Homeless Task Force are hosting a Faith in Action Zoom meeting Thursday, August 5th at 3 p.m. for groups and individuals to find out more about the program.